Hunter, Matt, welcome to Early Days.
Thanks for having us.
I spent my whole life chasing you. When will you come? Come home to me.
Guys, Bitaxe, why is it taking over the world?
Man, Bitaxe is like the ultimate home mining experience, right? So for a very long time, um, when the innovation of ASICs hit Bitcoin mining, it slowly started to slip away to people who had abundance of wealth who created large mining farms. And home mining was not really accessible. It was possible, but it wasn't really accessible to ordinary people like it was until Bitaxe came into existence. So we, Hunter and I, got into Bitaxe when we wanted to be home miners ourselves, and we originated into this space by looking at thousands of dollars of miners that were extremely consumption heavy on electricity and very expensive and hot and loud to run. And it wasn't feasible. When we plugged bit axes into the wall for the first time, we were totally amazed and we wanted to sort of share this experience with everyone. And it's sort of turned into what you've seen today, and Bitaxe is just absolutely exploding, especially after Bitaxe found its first block, and the space is absolutely wild right now. There is a lot of hype and a lot of excitement behind the Bitaxe project.
Tell me more about how the design files work with it. Is it really just as simple as going on their page and downloading some of these I mean, yeah, walk me through it. How does that work?
Yeah, so all of the files get hosted on GitHub, and open source means that all of the information, files, the firmware code, etc., is all public information. So there is some technical expertise that are required to actually build a device yourself, but all of the information is public. So if you're looking for a PCB schematic or just simply how the device is engineered, all the way down to the hardware, and then the firmware as well is also open source, which allows people to change it or modify it as needed as well.
And okay, so let's dive into the how you guys met, and then we'll jump into Solo Satoshi. You guys are based out of Texas, right?
Yes, sir. Yep. Hunter, you want to take the lead and tell them how we met?
Yo, Matt, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Did
Okay,
we
I think
lose them?
I think we lost Hunter.
Oh man, sorry about that.
That's okay. It's no problem. I think his internet was going a lot slower than both of ours. At first, I thought it was me, but
Well, we still do work for a high voltage company. Very time consuming and like stressful, even till this day, right? So Hunter and I met. We just instantly started to collaborate and resonated with each other because you just don't find other Bitcoiners out in the wild, and when you do, you hold them near and dear to you because they understand your craziness.
right.
So Hunter and I looked into upgrading electrical infrastructure, and it's tens of thousands of dollars. I mean, literally, you have to take an outage from the utility company, and it just wasn't feasible. we stumble across Bitaxe. We start talking about it and like how cool it is. We start reading up on the files and looking at the GitHub, looking at all the sellers. Like, they were very expensive when we first got into this, and we both ordered one. And when they come to our door, we unbox it, we look at it, and we go, why the hell is this thing so expensive? Why is this, $350 after taxes, shipping, and everything? Like, open source is supposed to be open and available and for the people, right? So, uh, at this time, I was still out in the field and everything was hectic. Well, when you are a high voltage technician, you are subject to take drug tests at any time, random drug tests, right? So what you'll find is that a lot of people in the high voltage industry have a pretty good head on their shoulders. Most of us have families, kids, wives, at the very least, dogs that they really love and care about. So they, dang, lost them again.
Yeah, it's okay. We can you can keep going. We can deal with it.
Okay. So in the high voltage industry, what you'll typically find is that most people have a very good head on their shoulders. Most of us have families, kids, dogs, at the very least, animals that everyone really cares about and they don't want to lose. They don't want to mess up their life. So uh, everyone has a pretty good head on their shoulders. You have to be sharp and on point at all times in the high voltage industry, because your life is on the line. And most importantly, it's not only your life, but it is the life of your brothers and sisters that are next to you out in the field. And everyone's life is on the line at the end of the day when you're messing with 345,000 volts. So being in the high voltage industry, you're subject to testing, getting drug tested at any time. And one day I got sent for a random drug test out in West Texas, not thinking anything of it. Honestly, when you're a high voltage technician, you sort of just look forward to it because it just means you get to leave the job site an hour or two early, and you're just back at the hotel, and you basically have it's like getting off school early when you were a
Yeah.
kid. So I go there, do my thing. I leave, go back to the hotel, enjoy the rest of my day. When I come back to Houston and come back to the office, I get a call from the person who did my analysis, and they told me that I pop positive for a substance that I never used before.
Wow.
Well, yeah. So after telling that guy a lot of things that I normally don't say to people, I was very ugly because, the people who work very close to me know how I am as a person. They know my morals. They know that I stand on business when it comes to like certain things, and it's just something I would never do. Well, the company took that information and they basically made me sit at home for a week. And during that week, I was really frustrated, really annoyed because I'd been working like this my whole life. When you're in the high voltage industry, you work 16 hours a day is nothing. You're talking about 100 plus hours a week. And to the normal person who works a 9 to 5, I don't think they can really um, process that, because it's such a huge amount of time. You're away from your family. You miss everything. You miss birthdays, holidays, weddings. You miss everything to sort of like chase that money and pursue a better life. Well, the company, after that week of sitting at home, they ended up terminating me. And no matter how much I fought or pleaded, or no matter how much people believed me, at the end of the day, the business did what they did. And then my world really came to a complete halt. And what that did for me, it did something to me. It gave me a spiritual awakening, and a realization that I had been dedicating my life to a company that could do this at any moment. And this is when my aggression turned into passion for Bitcoin mining, and this is when we really decided to pursue this with everything we had in us. And it was, like I said, it was just the most frustrating thing. I couldn't get over how this could happen. I kept asking myself, why? And then, if you fast forward a year later, I'd be really more confident in saying that everything happens for a reason, whether it's good or bad. And it's really all about what you want to turn your circumstances into. Because I could have took a really, I could have split my road into two ways. I could have went down a really deep, dark path, but I turned my anger and aggression into productivity. And Hunter and I started Solo Satoshi kind of informally. It was named, but it's grown into this awesome business and community where we have literally the most amazing supporters, amazing backing from the open source community that actually develops on these platforms. And here we are today. It's been a absolute wild ride. It's very hard to explain the feelings and emotions that we get like every single day when we talk about this and physically get to do what we love every single day.
Yeah, I think that's what I love about just entrepreneurship in general, and being a founder and starting a company. I know for myself, like that was something that I loved about my last job. About, like, I didn't have a circumstance like that, but I was at a point in my life in 2020 and 2021 where my job was selling to a corporation, and I had started, and we were one of like 15 individuals that started this company that was less than $1 million. And by the time he sold the company, it was going to be like 40 million. And so we had gotten in early, and I remember at the time I was like, I don't want to leave this company. It was the best job I had ever had. And but I had respected the owner. He was amazing to us. He taught me so much about how to scale a MSP. And at the time, I remember thinking, I was like, well, one door closes, another one opens, and that was when I decided to go all in on Bitcoin. Crazily, I was trying to do a media company. This was at the time when I was trying to do Thriller Bitcoin, but into that, I ran into Kyle and Keon, and we started Austin Bitcoin Club, and then from that came Pleb Lab, surprisingly, and that was a totally different. That was like, I'd never planned Pleb Lab. That was just a thing that came out of Austin Bitcoin Club. I wanted to do something completely different, but like you said, it's weird how things come out of something that you don't want to go through, and it's just how you react to that situation. So good on you, Matt. Can you talk a little bit further about how your family took it, and how I don't know if you have a wife or kids or anything like that, but like how did you deal with all that stress and all, because that was something that I felt personally in my life where I didn't handle that part very well. I could have handled that a lot better, but how did you deal with that?
I had to stay busy, man. I think when you are a man, if you are not busy all of the time, then you'll fall into depression and think about your circumstances too much. Luckily, I do have a very supportive wife, and she basically took over everything with no questions asked. And I mean, there's no one that knows me better than her, right? She knows I'm not into anything crazy, or obviously we wouldn't be together, because she's a very well put together person. And she's a very stable and well put together person at the end of the day. And everyone was really on my side. I mean, all of my peers that I worked with was like, man, this is crazy. Even upper management, but just kind of at the end of the day, the shot was called from probably somebody way at the top who doesn't care about anyone down at the bottom. and the event happened at the end of the day. But I had a lot of support, and me and Hunter literally talked on the phone every day. That was something that really helped me get through it. There was definitely a lot of emotions, but every day I found something to do. I got on the computer. We hustled on X. We preached Bitaxe from the top of a mountain to thousands of people on X that literally thought we were crazy. And when Bitaxe found its first block, that's when everything just went absolutely nuts. So I stayed busy. That's how I got through it. I had to keep my mind off of it and pursue how to be better.
So let's talk about like the actual Solo Satoshi company and how that actually separates y'all from the rest of the providers that are out there. Because I actually think there's a big difference from why I bought. So just so the listeners at home know that I heard about the Bitaxe, and some of the guys here in the lab have been talking about Bitaxe for a while now, and I'm just like, okay, well, let's get one for the lab. And then I looked at all of them, and then I chose the Solo Satoshi one because it was on Stacker News, and that was the whole thing there. But what what would you say, Matt, to the people that are listening to this? What separates Solo Satoshi from all the other options that are out there in the ecosystem?
I think, I really think it comes down to the community you build and how your brand correlates with those people. We definitely weren't the first people to come to market with Bitaxe. There were people there. Um, Bitaxe was a project for over a year, probably well over a year before we even bought our own first ones. I think it's the way we talk to people and deal with people and how people can resonate with us and the value we bring to the table. With, you're not just buying a device from us, you're like family when you shop with us. We have customers that, I mean, I just called one yesterday where me and him stayed on Google Meet and literally bullshitted for an hour and a half, and just talked about all kinds of things. He's a really cool guy from New York, and we make friends with people, we resonate with people. We are just normal people. We don't have venture capitalists who give us tons of money to stay in business. We're totally self-funded. Like Hunter said, we built this thing from the ground up with a few $1,000s, brick by brick. That was the initial investment. And we've always been open, honest, and transparent with people. And I think people recognize that. And I think people really respect our small business because of how hard we work for those people.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. Where do you guys think this kind of home mining is going? This pleb mining, Matt, where do you think this is all going? Especially, and how do you guys foresee Solo Satoshi kind of shepherding that process for people like myself, the plebs, the home miners?
I see home mining as being a very huge market. We've said before, we're just in the infancy stage. Like, this thing is an embryo. You know, home mining is often, or Bitcoin mining in general, is often referred to as one of the largest pillars of Bitcoin. Yet it's been one of the most secretive things about Bitcoin, which Bitcoin is open source and transparent. But the large guys have been hiding behind their proprietary software and machines for a very long time. And now that this firmware is available to people to actually build on, this space can now go exponential, and it could really start to see that network effect and that adoption, much like Bitcoin has as well. Another thing I didn't really get to mention earlier was that, when you think about trying to obtain Bitcoin, you often think your easiest way is maybe to just go to a centralized exchange and maybe just buy some Bitcoin. But the reality of the situation is that all Bitcoin is obtained through mining first. Miners eat first, right? So this is sort of how everything was spun about on our part as well, because our concerns were, what if the US government just says you can't buy Bitcoin off of Coinbase anymore? What does that do to the price? What does that do to people who want to actively acquire it? I think people start to ask these questions down the road as they look at the Bitcoin price, and it starts inching up toward $200,000 a coin. You know, I think we all know as avid Bitcoiners that most people won't be able to afford one Bitcoin, or they think they won't be able to afford Bitcoin at all. But if they ask the right questions, I think that all roads lead to Bitcoin mining at home, where you do have a real chance to mine a Bitcoin block, um, or actively participate in the Bitcoin network. I think this is a huge industry. I think it has huge potential. And our goal is to really try to get 1 to 10 terahashes in every home across the globe and try and further decentralize the Bitcoin network and try to throw those scales off from the large corporate miners, because they've really been in favor for years. They've been the net beneficiaries of mining being the way it is now.
Yeah, that's such a great take. I often wonder, like, what it would look like if we can get this kind of, because I feel like the Lightning Network gets a lot of hate these days, especially being around so many Lightning developers here at Plub Lab, and being able to use these wallets, and knowing that its functionality is already there, and yet people go out there and spread this FUD about the Lightning Network, and now seeing the Bitaxe and that being so popular, and when you combine these things, especially with running a node, and you start seeing this medium of exchange, and you start seeing these payments, and then you tie that in with mining, and you tie that in with everything at this point. And then at this point you're literally you have this kind of this what am I trying to describe here? But you have a whole economy of money, and it's a beautiful thing that Bitcoin has become there at that point. And yeah, I love the way you explained that, because at that point, what do we need? What do we need these big corporations for anymore at this point? If everything works, if we have payments,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, it's called the full stack.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I did a panel in Vegas, for the conference, for the 2025 conference, and they asked me, what is the full Bitcoin mining stack? And I was like, well, the full stack to me is, number one, holding your own keys, right? I think everyone starts off by buying a little Bitcoin. But you want to hold your own keys to your wallet. You want to make sure that Bitcoin is secure and that it can't move without your permission, and that you actually custody it. And then, you should run a node because you want your node to verify those transactions. You need that transparency, because if you're not doing that, then you're trusting someone else. And then you should have a miner that mines to that node, that solo mines. That way you're, further participating in the Bitcoin network. And just by doing those three things, it it creates a it creates a triangle that you always see us post. Um, and it is the most like critical things to do if you want to be in Bitcoin, because it is the full sovereign way.
Exactly.
You're in control of everything. Um, and all of these things are open source. So yeah, what do you need these larger corporations for that are just trying to pitch you something to make a few dollars? Or if we can mine Bitcoin at home and we can strip some of that power away from the larger industrial farms, then like I said, we can sort of start tilting that scale back in our favor, make it harder for them to be profitable, and replace their hash rate with a more robust hash rate that will stay on the network for years and years to come. This hash rate isn't going to shut off if Bitcoin dips 10, 20, $30,000. Home miners don't really care about that. Not when they're only paying $2.50, or maybe even the average person is willing to come out of pocket $20 a month to run a miner. You know, if you want to run something closer to maybe 10 hash rate. It really comes down to those things, and there's a lot of network variables and math variables that go into it. I mean, yeah, it would take hundreds of millions of people to run miners at home, but when you look at Bitcoin's adoption throughout the years and how it could go hyperbolic, um, a few hundred million people or 100 million people is only single digit percentage of the global population. These are possible numbers. It's hard to see right out of the gate. You know, when cell phones first came out, or when electricity was first, invented, or built upon, people didn't think these things were going to exist, right? When credit cards first came out, or bank cards, everyone used cash. No one thought that these things were going to take place, but it is a legitimate disruptive industry. And the movement that we're seeing right now behind Bitcoin mining gives us very good dynamics on where we think this is going next. And we really think that it just keeps taking off and taking off. Every block found on the Bitcoin network by a solo miner further fuels that movement as well. How it usually works is that people buy a Bitaxe. Those Bitaxes, while one is rather insignificant, but thousands of them working as solo miners across the globe, one of them will hit a block in a certain period of time. It's a probabilistic outcome. So one of them will hit a block at a certain period of time. When that happens, everyone celebrates. People start making TikToks. People upload to X. People start making YouTube videos. The blog posts start going out. People see that. People that aren't here yet see that. And they're like, what the hell is this thing?
Yeah.
Then they get one, right? And then that hash rate grows exponentially for a short period of time, until it happens again. And then a block is found that much faster because we've doubled the home hash rate. So you find this movement in a constant spiral of block found, people buying Bitaxe, block found, people buying Bitaxe, because that's just the way the system works.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. That's crazy. Let's talk about that sovereign stack a little bit, because I love the way you put that. Do you, and this is just me kind of dreaming a little bit, do you think you guys would ever partner to put together some sort of package like that on Solo Satoshi?
It's in the works. It's actively in the works.
Yeah,
You'll see.
yeah,
But yes,
I was thinking the same thing too. I was like, it's such a great thing to just offer the plebs. Like, I often think, like, when when you have a thing that people want, and you see a product that people want, you just got to make that service available for people to get access to. And
yeah,
time and time again, you have to think a little bit outside the box, or at least fill that niche that people are. Yeah, go ahead, explain.
I was gonna say, the barrier to entry is always cost, right?
100%.
The cost is what keeps people on the sidelines. And then next is the education. Or maybe for some people, it's vice versa. They might look to get educated before they buy spontaneously. But some people, I mean, our support lines get really clogged up. Some people just buy without doing any research, which is fine because we offer great educational resources to help get them up and going and mining Bitcoin at home. But if someone could offer the full stack in an affordable way that the average person could afford, then we would see even that much more exponential growth and people participating in the Bitcoin network. If we've learned anything from Bitcoin's history, it's that cheap hardware keeps the Bitcoin network decentralized. It's the financial incentive too. Like, why is the network hash rate almost up to 1 zettahash, but there's only 18,000 or 20,000 reachable nodes? Well, it's because you can spend money on mining equipment and get a reward, whereas when you run a node, you don't necessarily see an upfront reward like you may see with Bitcoin mining. But the reward of running your own node is being sovereign and verifying your own transactions. If you are using Bitcoin the way it's supposed to be used, then that's a reward on its own, making sure that you're not using anyone else's server to send Bitcoin, making sure that you are actually verifying those transactions. And nodes actually, you know, running a Bitcoin node is only one aspect of it, but they actually act as independent servers too, where you can store all of your own personal data if you want to do that kind of thing. um we give up so much data in our daily lives. Every single website you go to is collecting data on you. Your vehicle is collecting data on you. Everything you do is collecting your personal data and selling it to the market so that they can sell you something, or market you something that they think you should buy. So nodes are a very important part of the Bitcoin network, which is why we stress that if people mine, they shouldn't mine to a mining pool. They should mine to the Stratum client on their own node.
I want to talk about a little bit about how you guys run the actual business. And yeah, feel free to share as much as you can. You don't have to go too much in detail. We don't want to give away your alpha, but um is it profitable? Are you guys at a point where you guys are breaking even, or are you guys at a point where it's still kind of, you're still trying to make it, up and to the right? We finally got a sponsor. Can you believe it? Vintech. They're a legal firm out of Dallas, Texas, who Pleb Lab uses. We actually use Jim, who is this amazing gentleman, Central Texas lawyer, straight shooter, and he does legal expertise, and he has this amazing thing called Vintech. It's a place where you can get access to legal forms. You don't have to use ChatGPT to spin up some kind of gibberish. You can actually get these legal forms that are there already pre-built. You get access to his consulting 2 times a month. There's 25% off all his legal work that he applies to the network of attorneys that he knows. There's no long-term commitment. It's all for $199 a month. He also has this other thing called Vintech Plus, which is 3 hours of additional services per month, which is contract review, drafting, LLC, corporate formation, all that kind of stuff. That's for $999 a month. And it's affordable business legal stuff for startups, founders like yourself. Use the code PLEBLAB at myvintech.com and get 10% off your subscription. And a big thanks to Jim and the Vintech team for backing the builder community and helping us push things forward. All right, let's get back to the show.
So I'll tell you this, if it was really profitable, Hunter and I wouldn't still be working day jobs. Um, does it generate revenue? Yes, but businesses don't sustain off revenue. They sustain off, net margin. So a lot of our money that we earn back at this moment on year one gets put into critical infrastructure for our business. So when you run a business, you need damn good lawyers, damn good accountants, really good tax people, and I'll tell you, those people, they are probably eating ribeye steaks every night. Their rates are super high. Those people make really good money. They have really risky jobs too, and they have to do many years of schooling to get where they are and a lot of experience. So I respect those people. But if you want to do business the right way and you want to do right by people, then you have to make sure your business is protected. And that's where a lot of our funds has gone in year one. And we knew what the upfront cost would be. And this is why a lot of businesses go bankrupt year one, because they don't get into these things and they end up getting burned on a business deal, or things going south and someone suing them for everything they own. But the business is doing good. And what you get with that, when our business does good, we do good by the community. So you see us doing giveaways all the time. These giveaways cost us tens of thousands of dollars over, maybe a quarter period of time. But we do giveaways. We donate back to developers and the foundations which support those developers. And it also allows us to make events. When we go to events, I feel like that's where the real grassroots movement starts. When we get to meet the people who follow us on Twitter face to face, and we get to talk to those people and resonate with those people. At the end of the day, we do own a business, and we have to make sure that we're making at least enough money to be sustainable and to try and grow our business so that we can provide the absolute best stuff to people globally. But in a sense, it's not all about the money. We literally, Hunter and I was talking about this probably like a day or two ago. And you just kind of get those people in the dark shadows of X that kind of yell at you and think you're all about the money. But at the end of the day, people don't see what you go through. They don't see that although Hunter and I took office jobs to have more time for solo, that we're more busy now than we were when we never had this little startup. They still don't see that you are on the computer 8 to 10 hours a day after your day job. You're home with your family, but you're not present. They don't see that you missed your kid's soccer game, or that you forgot you and your wife's anniversary is coming up because you're so busy all of the time. They don't see how we've stayed up for over 24 hours straight packing boxes, and Hunter's wife literally has blisters on her fingers from packing over 1,000 boxes. Like, they don't see the struggles. A lot of people only see your success, and your success is only a small fraction of what really goes on behind the scenes. This is not as simple as putting devices in boxes and shipping them globally. This is a full-blown commitment to making sure that when people get a product, we see them through from A to Z, and that they're online, and that they can reach us anytime for any reason if they have issues with their device. For full, total honesty and transparency, Solo Satoshi just made 1 year at the end of May. So in over 52 weeks, none of us have put a single penny in our pockets from Solo. And it's because we have day jobs. It's a luxury having a day job and being able to do something to progress yourself to the next level, although it takes hella work ethic and so much sacrifice that a lot of people can't really, I don't think a lot of people can really comprehend the sacrifices it takes to be successful. But we haven't paid ourselves $1. We've donated a lot. We've done a lot of giveaways. We've given back to the community as much as we possibly can. But yeah, we haven't put $1 in our pocket, man. And we're really proud of it. Now in 2026, the IRS is going to go, hey guys, they're going to look at financial statements and they're going to go, you have to pay yourselves a salary. But at that point, being a Bitcoiner, we don't care to, like, okay, maybe one day we'll have a nice boat that we can take the family out and stuff on. But when you're a Bitcoiner, you always live right at your means. You never live above your means.
When we bring new founders into Club Lab, that's one of the things that's the most surprising thing. They're kind of surprised by how hard it is to actually grind, and how long it actually takes to either get a grant or get to success or get a raise or just bootstrap your business from the ground up. And it's not easy at all. What makes it easier is definitely being around a group of founders is makes it a lot easier, because it makes the heavy days a lot easier to carry that load, and you can bring that community together and actually ask questions and be a little bit more networked in about, hey, do you know this person? How do you do this, or how did you manage this? And you touched on lawyers and stuff, and that's usually the best piece of advice. I'm glad that you guys are doing that. Is you're going to pay for lawyers, bookkeepers, and accountants, and that's going to be a
Yeah.
recurring monthly thing for sure.
Yeah, starting a business will be, for anyone listening, starting a business will be the most fulfilling and self-rewarding thing you've ever done for yourself, because I feel like you will never work harder for anyone else than yourself, especially when you experience um the slightest taste of success, or will this really work? That's your biggest, most scariest thing that you're worried about as a business owner. You're like, is this going to work? Will people like this? Will this be successful? And once you get this little freckle of it might actually work in the back of your brain, it unlocks a superpower in your body where you can stay up for 2 days straight and literally destroy yourself, but still not even be tired. It is very awesome. It's very motivational and self fulfilling, but it will be the hardest thing you've ever done in your life, ever. There's nothing harder than being a small business owner. There are large corporations out here that are looking to completely crush smaller guys. And that's a whole nother side of business that you have to deal with. You have to deal with competition, the good, bad, and the ugly, and you have to fight those battles behind the scene while being professional and well tailored in person when you're talking to customers and giving presentations, giving speeches, doing panels. And in the back of your mind, you're like, I know every single second of the day that I'm not working, someone is working to outperform me. And it is a stress. If you want to be successful, it is a stress that you have to learn how to manage and how to put your anger and frustration into productivity. It's the hardest thing you've ever had to do. You have to be a web developer, you have to be a photographer, you have to be a videographer, you have to know how to do all of these things, shipping, fulfillment. You have to know a little bit about legal, because these people are on your team, but you don't want them to take advantage of you either, right? So you need to know what your books look like and be able to determine what your financials look like. You have to do everything, especially when you're only 3 people. And that's really another side that people don't get to see either. And we haven't even gotten into customer service and technical support, because that alone is a full-time 40-hour-a-week job right there. It's really difficult.
Gosh, I feel like you're reading my mind.
Yeah, I mean, we're living it, brother. We are living it, and it's real, because like it just, like you said, it resonates with you.
Talk about the having to deal with the people. You said something about the bigger companies trying to squash you, and you don't have to say any names, but talk about how heavy that is, especially being y'all, because you're in Texas. That's mining country. Talk
It's
about talk about that, and about having to deal with the yeah, just let it out.
Yeah, I mean,
Talk to Car
It's
about it.
heavy.
I know exactly what that. We work with startups and founders and all that stuff. So I have to work with all sorts of sides to that equation. So I know exactly what you're talking about when you say that stuff. So yeah, I want to hear about it.
Yeah. I mean, it's a heavy weight and we all carry it. You know, we're we are a freckle or maybe even an atom in the universe of Bitcoin mining. These guys that have been in the mining space for a decade have tons of money and capital at their disposal at any minute, and small businesses depend on sales to drive revenue so that we can try and keep up with what the bigger guys are doing. And sometimes the business side just gets really ugly, and that's where it helps to have protection. You know, you may enter an agreement with someone where they're like, yeah, sure, we can make 1,000 devices, and then you enter that agreement and then they rug pull you at the last minute, like
Oh
right before a product launch.
gosh.
Or, you know, we have a pretty big social media presence, right? It's no secret. It's not follow bots. It's what we've built over a year. We could post a emoji with sunglasses and it might get 100 likes, but that's because people have their notifications on. They're so excited about seeing what we have to post and keeping up with the space. Well, other businesses notice that. They want to do collaborations, they want us to do marketing and such. And being open, honest, and transparent has a negative side too, because you want to try to help everyone and be cool with everyone and just make peace at the end of the day. And people take that kindness as a weakness. You know, they'll use you for your social media platform, and then, you know, being a small business and being a minnow in the Shark Tank is really hard. But we are like, Solo Satoshi is like minnows with miniguns, bro. Like we we definitely stand our ground and make sure that people are really wanting to handle business at the end of the day. And every negative experience that we've been through over the past 52 weeks has taught us super valuable lessons along the way. I mean, the hardest lessons learned are the best lessons learned. And the more expensive the error is, the least likely it is to happen in the future. Because if you're depending on that money coming back to you or reciprocating, then you will learn such a great lesson from that, because it will put you in such a hard spot on your next come up, or, you know, the next product or something like that. Like, the hard lessons we've learned over the years has made us has given us a stone foundation on principles that we now stand on before we walk into any meeting, any business room with these guys, before we even talk about anything, you know. And it's just stuff you have to learn along the way. We don't rub shoulders with other business people quite often. It sounds like at Pleb Labs you guys have like the ideal setup for like us to actually rub shoulders with people and talk to other business owners. So we've learned a lot of things the hard way, and it just makes you hard as concrete in the end, you know, because it's expensive lessons learned.
Yeah, totally. I think I 100% see your side on things. Like, been through similar situations and have gone through the gauntlet the past 5 years building Plub Lab. And I think there is definitely what you said about learning through these things. For me personally, I think my faith has taught me that no matter what comes in front of me, no matter how bad the situation gets, this is what God wants me to go through. And there's a lesson here. And so now I've been through so much bad shit in business. Now I kind of just take a step back. I don't even get upset about it anymore. I kind of just look at it and say, wow, interesting. Okay. This is what the situation is. That's a new one. I've never seen that before. Okay. And me and Teresa will talk about it. We'll go have a lunch or a dinner, and we'll be kind of dumbfounded for a second. We'll gripe about it, and then we'll be like, what are we going to do about it? And then we'll figure out a plan. and then we'll go on about our business. Like that's how we run our business. I've never said this publicly, but Club Lab internally, me and Teresa are Christian, so we run a Christian business, and
That's awesome.
that's how we operate. And so we're not gonna do things immoral or unethical as best as we possibly can. And so that's kind of how I look at things now. In the past, I would get upset. I would scream to the roof. I would do these things, and now I just it is what it is. Like you said, you're gonna learn
Yeah,
from it, and you're gonna move on.
it's like what happened to me with my primary job, right?
Right.
Those things happen in business too, but you are oftentimes in a little bit more control at the end of the day when it comes to like these agreements and things. It's really just like who can be smarter than someone else at a certain standpoint. It's like a when you're talking to other businesses and trying to make these moves, you're like playing a game of chess, right? And you're just trying to get that checkmate or that signature on the line at the end. But when everything doesn't go your way, I'm a pretty I'm a pretty emotional person. Like I say what's on my mind. I wear my heart on my sleeve. It's because I'm very passionate
Mhm.
too. And I'm outspoken. I'm sort of a loose cannon. Like if I know something's corrupt, I'll speak about it publicly because I don't like that. Like
Yeah.
if I know someone is in this space with not the best intentions,
Right.
then I'll say something. But I know there's always the don't trust verify things, but I like to shed light in dark corners where people have been hiding for so long, right?
Right.
But you just have to make the best of your situation. And what we live by at Solo Satoshi religiously is just do the right thing and it will reciprocate into something better in the end. Be open, honest, and transparent and act with a good moral compass, have good have a good foundation of principles and everything will work out in the end. But it requires hard work as well. It's kind of like prayer without action, right? You can't just pray. You got to pray and you got to act on it as well because God gave you free will. So you have to keep the ball rolling, do the right things, and it'll come back to you in 100 times, 100 times as much.
I 100% agree. I think we keep losing Hunter, but I wanted to talk about real quick if you have time still. I know we were here for we had an hour set. We're a little bit over the hour now, but the last thing I want to touch on was just like the chips. Do you think the way Bitaxe chips and where that's going, do you think it'll lead to a place where we're going to be able to have these kind of solo Satoshi options that you guys have on your website? I don't know, like maybe we have it, in a toaster or like in a microwave, like in our normal appliances, like in a vehicle or in like these random things around the house, Matt. Like, or will it always just be a standalone thing that on a coffee table or on an office desk?
Well, it's going to evolve into that. And that's the goal because not everyone is just going to want a machine running um, on their desktop as a standalone device, or on their nightstand or on their bookshelf, etc. The way you get global adoption over time is trying to put or the way you increase that hash rate to where it tips the scale back into home mining favoritism and not corporate favoritism is by trying to get as much hash rate in homes as possible. All of your utilities in your home are already consuming power, and a lot of those things aren't giving you a reward in return. Maybe like your refrigerator, you can look at your reward is okay, my vegetables don't expire in 3 days, which they will at the fourth day. It doesn't matter what refrigerator you have them in, but like all of these things in your home are already burning energy, right? So I look at a world where homes are heated by miners eventually. Now, it's not really Not really feasible for us here in the South because we have natural gas and that's pretty competitive to electricity rates. But for people in colder climates who don't have natural gas, a Bitcoin heater is their perfect model. I mean, what's cooler than if you have a just say you have a 3000 watt, if the heater in your home, your electrical heater is burning 3000 watts, then why wouldn't you have an S19 up there stacking sats burning the same amount of energy? That S19 is going to give you the single purpose of mining, right? But or heat, but it will also give you another purpose of paying itself off, and you get to collect the best money the world's ever seen in return. So that's one aspect of it. And then I like the fact that you bring up the vehicle stuff because there's a world I think that most people can't imagine either where if the world goes over to electric vehicles maybe, and we have all these Starlink satellites in space, what's a world where every vehicle has an outlet that you can plug into and Starlink Wi-Fi that can actually run a miner. Literally every vehicle
Wow.
on the road could at least have 1 terahash in it and be running. Or even if they weren't electric and they were gasoline combustible engines, you have an alternator
Mm.
generating power to your vehicle. And if you're not using all that power, then it's technically wasted power, right? So I've personally plugged my Bitaxe in and hooked it up over a hotspot and drove around in mind. I had a it's like a 9 hour drive to Odessa Midland area from the Houston area. And I've literally taken my miner on the road and mined the entire way from Houston to Odessa when I was out in the field. So this topic is really interesting. It could bring up a whole rabbit hole of topics on its own. But I think that this is possible in the future. And I think the incentive is that once Bitcoin gets more adoption or global adoption for that matter, that people actually start to look into these things when Bitcoin is more in the news, or maybe you see the president start to talk about it more. Normal average people who's never thought of these things, they start to look into Bitcoin and they find these innovative ways. They find this space and they find these innovative ways to mine Bitcoin, and it just increases the network hash rate exponentially and creates a more robust network with more distributed hash rate that cannot be controlled.
Yeah, that'd be so cool, man. That'd be really cool to put miners in vehicles. Yeah, just think it's just mining like and then just think of the network at that point. Like the amount of individual hash that's out there. Gosh, that's so cool. That'd be so
Yeah,
cool.
the future, I used to be very pessimistic about the future before I found Bitcoin. You just kind of look at the existing financial system, and honestly, it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. You're working your ass off for money that's like they literally print billions of dollars every single day. There's like this hot air balloon with a big gash in the side of it that's just leaking hot air, and they're just continuously pumping more fiat or hot air into the balloon. And it's completely unsustainable. You look at the people closest to the money printer, they're the people who are benefiting the most, the people who are in the pockets of the politicians, and how all of that literally ties into each other. You look at how they manipulate interest rates to increase inflation, to boost the economy or crush the economy, and it just doesn't make sense. It seems like you're running in a hamster wheel until the day you die, and Bitcoin is like the brakes on that hamster wheel. It just stops it right in place, and it lets you get off that wheel and start to explore your own life and what Bitcoin can actually do for you. And when you take the deep dive and put the hours in that it takes, the hundreds of hours that it takes to understand how Bitcoin operates and how it could financially set you free, all of a sudden, all of this makes sense. And then you want to try to acquire as much as possible. and there's Bitcoin mining just sitting there waiting for you. So I see a world where Bitcoin adoption continues to increase exponentially, especially as it's in the news more and talked about more on TV. Unfortunately, that's the way you're going to capture majority of the people's attention. I can tell you personally, maybe even you from being a small business owner, you don't have a whole lot of time to watch TV, right? So I don't even the TV stays on for my kids, maybe my wife sometimes, but I don't watch a whole lot of TV. But that's how you're going to capture everyone else, right? Like the normal people who haven't quite woken up yet, because they're like frogs in a boiling pot, right? Like, but the water's not really boiling yet. It's just warm. And they're just sitting there like, man, this is comfortable. Well, the water's starting to boil and they got to hop out or they're going to die, you know? So I see a world where we continue to get adoption. People find Bitcoin home mining on their own. If not, we will just keep screaming about it until they do. And it's a really beautiful thing. It's given me it's given me a great outlook on the future in a world where I used to be very pessimistic and not really foresee a way out. Bitcoin's definitely given me that.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. It's definitely changed my life for sure. I think we've been so lucky. Like, I don't know how old you are, but like for me, like I remember living through the '90s and seeing how the internet evolved, and then right around the .com boom taking off, and then seeing and then going to school, and then seeing that take off, and then going from dial up to broadband, and then seeing how that took off, and then Wi-Fi getting enabled, and then seeing the iPhone release, and then seeing all of that go on. And it kind of reminds me of a similar thing when I see Bitcoin's adoption and seeing the Lightning Network, and then now seeing all this kind of stuff take off with the Bitaxe and kind of what we were talking about with the sovereign stack. And you can kind of slowly start seeing the similar trajectory. Obviously, it's money, so it's completely different and it's once a millennium technology, but it's a similar kind of gradual um, move up, and that's what's so exciting about all this stuff is you can see similarities in the way it's progressing, and it's really fun because you're in the thick of it. It's cool.
Yeah, and the more successful something is, the more capital it's gonna attract, and the more it's gonna improve, right? Like open source really lacks on funding, and it's unfortunate because open source developers, no matter what you're developing, if it's open source, especially on Bitcoin, it has the power to change the trajectory or make things more accessible to people, which can then contribute in more adoption. But open source just doesn't get the right funding. There are some huge people out there like Jack, the ex CEO of Twitter, who contribute to open source Bitcoin or open source Bitcoin developing greatly, but there's not a whole lot of people outside of that circle. There are more people. I don't know them by name, but I know he's one of the biggest contributors. He's one of the most wealthiest contributors. So that's one of our goals and mission as well, is to give back to those people, because what you find with it not being so financially incentivizing to be an open source developer, people do it strictly out of a passion, and that's great. Those people are amazing. There are literally amazing open source developers all in Bitcoin right now, but it sort of keeps it a little stagnant. You know, if there was people who could donate and sort of contribute to these people to get them out of their full-time job. I mean, man, there's Boeing engineers, there's Apple developers out there. There's people out there that know what to do to make Bitcoin scale and make it work even better. It's just that the way life is, everyone is trapped in their fiat jobs right now. And if the incentive isn't there, it's hard to get people to make that jump just simply for a passion. I think a lot of people I was telling Hunter this yesterday. When I go into the corporate office and I look around at everyone, like really besides Hunter, I see a lot of people just spinning their wheels. They're doing something because it makes an income. They're not doing it because they're passionate about it. And you can tell because during lunch break, everyone comes to life. Or when 4 o'clock rolls around on a Friday, everyone comes to life because it's the weekend. You can tell that everyone is just doing something for a paycheck and they're not doing it because they're passionate about it. But in this space, there are people who want to come over and want to contribute, but they're locked by, they have a ball and chain around their ankle to their fiat jobs, and it sucks. I'm currently one of them, although I'm very close to putting my 2 week notice in, and just to do the right thing. I kind of just don't want to show up the next day, but I'm very close to putting my 2 week notice in and going full time.
Oh wow! I will just tell you from experience when I actually stepped off the ledge and didn't didn't have to show up to a regular job, even though I had savings and stuff, it was still scary. And that was when you really know. That was when you really started um that was when you really started making things happen. Like, cause you already, I was already working like you. I was already working outside of my time and doing all that stuff. But it was when I quit, was when I was working even 10 times harder. And then I still wasn't making the enough to cover myself. And then it was years later where I was like, what am I doing wrong?
Yeah.
And I think that's where I would say is like it's so much easier to do it when you're around other entrepreneurs because you're in the foxhole with others, if that makes any sense, because it
Yeah.
makes things a little bit easier, even if it's just a community that you can check in with and stuff like that. And I think that's why we have Plub Lab, and that's why we have people like that. Because you're from Houston, right? Like, do you think there'll ever be like a hub over there? Do you guys have like a hub over there in Houston, or like a meetup or anything that you guys are around
Well, so
other people that are doing entrepreneur stuff in Bitcoin?
I'm originally from New Orleans, Louisiana. I moved out here maybe 10 years ago just to try and pursue a better life. There's endless amount of work out here. I live in an area where there's a lot of refineries and electrical work and substations and stuff. So I can tell you at the end of the day, if Solo didn't work out for whatever reason, I have a job anywhere I want,
Okay.
being a high voltage tech. It's just a high demand industry. Um, but yeah, as for a hub, currently right now, it's we haven't really put this out for the last year because sometimes you kind of think it's embarrassing to say, but I think some of the greatest startups literally started out of a garage,
Oh, that's cool.
and
Yeah.
we are a pleb based startup
Nice.
100%. So currently right now our operations is out of a garage. The house looks like an Amazon shipping facility.
Dude, own it.
Literally, there's
Hell yeah.
boxes and stuff
I
everywhere.
love it.
Yeah. And we've really just started preaching this over the last few months
Hell
and
yeah.
letting people know because there starts to become a false pretense that you're some millionaire or
Yeah.
successful corporation. And it's like, no, man, we're just three people in a garage at
Dude,
the end of
you
the
gotta
day,
start
you
somewhere.
know?
You gotta start
Oh,
somewhere.
yeah.
Dude, we were me and Kyle were just two guys that wanted to start a meetup in a park.
Yeah.
And then they
Yeah.
gave us a shoebox of a room at Capital Factory, and we were just 7 or 15 guys in a shoebox in a small little room at Capital Factory. And then it spawned from
Yeah.
there. That's where it came from. It came from there. But that was like it was 5 years in the making. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I was working with Marty at the time, for the first year, I think, year and a half. And we were just shooting in his backyard for like the first 6 months, I think. And I was able to learn from him a lot of like how he worked, like that was when I knew the like discipline. I was like, oh wow, this is how he does it. And that was when I was like, oh wow, like I thought I worked hard. I didn't even I wasn't even close. And that was when I knew. I was like, oh, you got to work like this. and just watching. I didn't even. Then I would hang out with him all day, and I would just ask him questions. And that
Yeah,
was when I
and
knew. I was like, that's what it takes. I was like, that's what it takes to be successful. Is you got to be grinding all the time. And he would take care of his family in the like what you're talking about. We would be in the backyard recording. He would be taking care of his family and during the day, and he would still be recording like all that stuff, and then we would just be producing stuff all day. It was awesome, but I learned
it,
so much.
it it's a constant grind. It's
Yeah.
a constant grind. And something else you feel as a small business owner is like you feel bad about sleeping. I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but you like when you actually do want to take a break or try to rest or something, you feel bad because you know you should be doing something else, or maybe you had an agenda for the day and you hit a roadblock, which just prevented you from getting the main thing you wanted to get done actually done that day. And you lay in bed at night and all these thoughts start to hit you. You're like, man, I'm never going to catch up. Man, is it all worth it? Man, I feel bad for laying down, but I know I need to rest because if not, I'm not going to perform 100% tomorrow. Like it's a lot of things. And I want
Yeah.
to touch on something you said. Like, you said when you walked off your job and went full time, you realized that's when you had to do what you had to do. Ever since I was 17, I've been on my own, and that's literally my life statement is that my back has always been against the wall
Yeah.
and I have no safety net. And when you don't have a safety net and when you don't know where your next meal is going to come from, and you have kids that are calling you daddy that look up to you, your back is completely to the wall and you have to succeed. And when you carry yourself that way, no matter what you do in life or whatever journey you're going on, when you operate off of that principle, I cannot fail, you will not fail. And I know when I go full time here very soon that we're going to take this thing to the next level, man. And that's the day I look forward to more than anything else. When my back is to the wall, like when I got fired, I knew I had to make a way no matter what because I didn't want to run straight back to that company, and I wanted to show them that I could make it without them. And that's what I did. I went straight to grinding, and I didn't sleep. I mean, I didn't do a lot of things that I was supposed to do on the daily basis, but when your back's to the wall, you got to succeed. And as a productive person, as a man, you those are principles you have to live by, especially as a small business owner.
Love it. Dang, this is so good. Love it, Matt. Um, yeah, let's wrap this thing up. Where can we learn more about Solo Satoshi? What do you guys have planned for the rest of the year? Where can they go get some bit access from?
Yeah, so if you go on solosatoshi.com, you could do the absolute deep dive on our business. We just actually made an About Me or About Us page where you can go and see our team members and read about us. You can see our mission statement. One of our greatest educational resources we have at the time, which kind of gets buried because it's on the bottom of the webpage, is our home mining blog. So we have a home mining blog, which has so much documentation, product specs, how to mine to your own node, um, a lot of thoughts. Like some of it is kind of reporting based or journalistic based. Some of it's education, facts. Like we try to give people all of the tools to make their home mining journey successful because we realize at the end of the day that this is more about educating people and not just trying to make as much money as possible. Without that education, you don't see that adoption. So we've really prioritized that. So definitely check out the blog. And we also have something else called the Home Mining Podcast, where we have an excellent host, Two Sats on X. He actually one-on-one interviews or more has casual conversations like this with people who are doing great things in the home mining space. So we've tried to scale this thing up where we're offering the most to the community and not just taking everything for ourselves. So look out for all of our educational content. You can find the Home Mining Podcast on YouTube if you just type it in. We've had some really good ones. And then if you want to buy a Bitaxe, it's front and center up top. If you want to take your very first dive into home mining, we're looking at trying to get some really exciting, more innovative things out. We're looking into multi-chip, trying to give plebs that the max hash rate that they can afford and without running up that electrical bill. So that's what we're into right now. As for the rest of the year, we're just gonna keep doing our thing, man. We need to make it up to Austin. I want to formally meet you and meet the
Yeah.
team and rub shoulders with other small business guys and hear their frustrations and learn as much as possible. I need to make it up to Bitcoin Park in Austin. I feel absolutely terrible that we're always so busy. Rod's been literally trying to drag us there for months. There's so much stuff we want to do. It's just being a small business and being tied to the 9 to 5 right now, we just can't make it. Some people get offended, some people understand, but at the end of the day, we can't make everything. We're only 3 people running a crazy operation right now, but we're trying.
Yeah. Yeah. At the end of the day, like I think for me, once I got to like year 4, I told myself, I was like, hey, like in order for this thing to be successful, I got to put my 100% intention on it, and I got to block everything else out. And that means like letting people know, like, you can only reach me through email, and that's it. And it doesn't mean I don't love you or care about you or find me in person. And I think that for me has helped me focus on my business the best, is because when you have all these other messaging apps and all these other things, like, it doesn't work. If anything, it distracts you from your business. And that for me has been the game changer this year for me. And I think that's why I've been a lot more focused. And I think for individuals that are listening, and even for people in the lab, I always try to tell them, like, just find the thing that keeps you the most focused on whatever task that you're working on, and just put as much focus as you possibly can on it. And I think I always, like, whenever somebody's like, I'm talking to somebody and they're like, well, so and so won't reach out to me, or they haven't responded to me, I'm like, they're running a business. Like, they're running their own business. You should not be upset because they haven't messaged you back. Like, that's the last thing you should be upset about. Anyways.
Yeah, you gotta lock in, man. You gotta lock in as a small business owner, and
Yeah.
sometimes that means it it sacrifices, and it's sacrifices that you have to make, and sometimes it's the sacrifices you don't want to make.
Mhm.
But if you think about it, I was a high voltage technician working out in the field
Yeah.
over 100 hours a week for 6 or 7 years. How much of my life did I sacrifice?
For their business.
And then I look exactly. And then I look back 52 weeks and I'm like, I just saved myself probably 10 years of my life off of this 1 year. And when you start to look at things that way as a small business owner, you see that time preservation you get in the future. That's what it's all about. And it's hard to make your wife see that. It's hard to make your family see that. It's hard to make your friends see that, or anyone else who's very close to you. But as long as you know that in the back of your mind, you make those short-term sacrifices, and I'm a firm believer it all pays off in the long run.
Yeah, 100%. That's why I'm so bullish. Like, I'm bullish on 2 things. I'm bullish on Bitcoin, and that the second most valuable asset outside of Bitcoin is a Bitcoin company. Those 2 things, because that Bitcoin company is going to have Bitcoin on its balance sheet, and that's it.
But yeah,
That's it. So
absolutely.
we're in the right direction. We're heading in the right direction.